Good evening, everyone. I'm Beth Jones-Sanborn, moderator for tonight's Meet the Candidates for Gorham Town Council. I'd like to welcome the public to the event and thank them for their interest. Now, on November 6th, you will have the opportunity to vote for 2 openings on the Town Council. And our candidates have been given some questions prior to this broadcast, and those questions will be rotated throughout the evening. The candidates will have about 2 minutes to answer each question, and we certainly hope to offer an informative discussion of relevant topics for the town of Gorham. In the chambers tonight, we have Ginny Wilder-Cross, we have Fred Daigle, and Lee Pratt. Welcome, candidates, and thank you for your participation this evening. We will start off with some opening remarks, and prior to this evening's event, we did do a random draw to see who would go first, and Lee, you're going to lead us off.
So I was the lucky one that drew number 1, I guess. So I'll start out by saying I'm a lifelong resident of Gorham. I lived in Gorham for 37 years of my life. I'm raising 2 children in the Gorham school system with my wife, Nicole. I own my family owns and operates a business in the Gorham Industrial Park. I guess fun fact is, if I happen to get elected this year, I will be the only counselor that is running a business in Gorham and has 2 children in the school system. So I think that could be an interesting balancing act between the 2 opposing forces, I guess is the best way to put it. As a lifelong resident, I'm a true believer in this town. I love driving through the center of it. I planted trees when I was a kid that are outside of Roby Gym, and it's fun to drive by and see things that you did as a kid still standing there today. I think, like everyone here, I really love the town, and I want to get on the council just to do my civic duty for the town and hope to get elected in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Fred, we'll proceed with you.
Well, hi. I'm Fred Daigle. Claude Daigle, it says in front of me. I'm the 3rd. So I was born and raised on a potato farm here in Gorham, in North Gorham. Been there my whole life. Both my parents graduated from Gorham High School and lived there the whole life. My wife and I graduated together at Gorham High School. My 2 children have graduated and they're in college now. The reason that I decided to get involved with running for town council was growing up, going outside of Gorham and meeting people from other towns, whether it be as a kid or a young adult. You always say, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Gorham." That was a big thing to say, and everybody's, "Oh wow, Gorham's great, you know, I like going there, it's a nice place, it looks great." And now as an adult and a business owner now, you talk to other people in town and everybody's got something to gripe about. And, you know, and I can't say I don't either, but, you know, it's the only way to know what's really going on, as I've always been told, is to jump in with both feet. So here I am, and maybe have the opportunity to help. And that's what I want to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Fred. Finally, Ginny.
I'm Ginny. I'm the one whose names you've been seeing on the sign. It's really Virginia Wilder-Cross, but we'll go with Ginny. And I want to be on the town council because I love the town of Gorham. Unlike Lee and Fred, I'm from away. And I think that qualifies me because I really love the town. I want to be able to give back. A lot of people know me from my connection with the Gorham Business Exchange. When I first came to town, I just couldn't believe how warm the welcome was. Gorham welcomed me, my family, my business, and accepted some of my crazy ideas, and I didn't expect to be received that way. It was wonderful. And so now it's time for me to give back. But as I said, most people probably know me through the Business Exchange. My business, Working Words and Graphics, was one of the charter members. I was president and the first executive director for the exchange. I've also been involved with the Gorham Times. At the time when there was a group of very enthusiastic volunteers who felt it was time for Gorham to have its own newspaper, I was pretty excited about it, but even more excited when I was chosen to be its first publisher. Other people know me as an educator. So I've owned a business, and I've worked in the community, and I've been an educator. For 23 years, I taught technical writing for the Department of Technology at USM, and that's a long time. When I started to have children of people that I had as students, I realized maybe it was time to try something else. I've also was involved with New Year Gorham. So those people who enjoy New Year's Eve, come on out and have a good time. One last thing I want to say is that I think USM is Gorham's best kept secret. And as a town councilor, I'd like to make sure that those secrets are all revealed. I think we need to do more together.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny, and that leads us nicely into the first question of the evening. Certainly it's important for people to know what the priorities of their town councilors are. So what are the 2 or 3 most pressing issues you feel the town of Gorham needs to address? And Fred, this time we'll start with you.
Just 2 or 3?
Yes, for this evening, we'll limit it to 2 or 3.
Pick one. Pick any 2 or 3. I mean, there's the residential growth. There's businesses need to come in here. There's the capacity of the schools. There's the zoning and referendums that are going to be coming up. There's all kinds of issues. But I think the biggest thing is to know and to understand how they're not all independent issues. Everyone affects each other one. And we have to, you can't just go and I don't believe that you can look at one and say, okay, we fixed this problem. We have a solution for this, and then go on to B. You have to worry about whether, your solution to B is going to affect C and D, and then however, and this and that. That it's not always simple, I understand. But there's always a solution. And I just, as I said before, I want to jump in with both feet and learn how the committees operate, learn how everything affects everything else, and then hopefully be able to offer some ideas and solutions that get there. I've always been one to be able to, when I've attacked a problem, really had no idea how I was going to solve it as I started it out. But as you get there and you start working through it, the solution usually presents itself. And I think I have a good experience in recognizing the solution when it pops up. So I think that's where we should. Those are my priorities, is to just make sure that everything works together.
Thank you. Ginny.
Well, my 2 or 3 priorities actually have changed. I've been out knocking on doors, and some people I hope who are watching will recognize me. What I did when I met people was to ask them what were the things that they were concerned about, and how would they like to see the town council address those issues. And without question, the problem that people wanted to talk about most was the growth and all of the new homes and developments that have cropped up. A lot of the people that I talked to, especially senior citizens, were also concerned about the taxes. And when we talked about how they are, just as Fred just said, everything's connected. It's almost like the knee bone is connected to the ankle. What I have learned is that most of the concerns that we have are all connected, and probably connected to the way the town grows.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. And finally, Lee.
Yeah, like the other 2 people have said here, it's stabilizing our tax base is a huge deal for this town. Trying to get more businesses in town to help stabilize the base is a gigantic deal. Being more business friendly, just saying come grow with us isn't a way to get businesses in town. We need to find a way to attract them and retain them. Looking at budgets, getting multiple bids on expenditures. I mean, I'm a finance major. That's what I do, is I look at budgets and I can pick them apart and look at them and say, why is this here? Why is this not here? If we're not getting 3 bids in a process, what are we doing? We're just taking the first guy's word for it, basically. And the town can lead by example. Let's say we have to have landscaping in front of every business to make it look beautiful and everything else. Look at our town signs. We basically weed in front of them, string trim around them, and that's it. Let's be attractive as ourselves to some people coming into town. Again, great town, great people, and we have great infrastructure and great systems. Just a little bit of fine tuning, I think, can make that happen. And again, I think streamlining some processes in this town is really the key to attracting, retaining, and balancing the housing that we have in this town. So, thank you.
Thank you. So moving on, next question, and we'll start with Jenny. Do you agree with the recent sprinkler ordinance in residential houses, and how do you feel it will impact development?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm glad that I wasn't on the town council when this actually came to vote. I met with the chief, with the fire chief. I came to the meetings. I listened to the residents, and I listened to our builders. And I actually believe they all have a good argument. Whether I agree with it or not, it's a law. I think that if I had been on the town council, I would have asked not to vote for it yet. I don't know about other people, but for me, when somebody tells me how I have to behave in my own space, or how I have to do something in my house that's my personal space, I tend to I back up a little bit and think, wait a minute, this is my space. So the question is there some way that we can make people understand that this is for the good of them, and that in the long run it will save money? It's a very long run for sure. Maybe we could have done things like give a tax break for people who did the renovations and have the sprinklers installed. Maybe the new builders could get some kind of a break for it as well. Why not have the town do all of the inspections? And that would take some of the sting out of it. I had another thought, and it seems to have gone out of my head. Oh, I know what it was. I just thought of it. And you haven't raised the red paddle, so I can tell you what it is. The other thing that we could do is to raise the cost of a building permit for those people who choose not to have a fire suppression system in their house. A lot. So that way they have a choice. They have a choice of paying more for the permit, or paying more to have it installed.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Lee.
Double-edged sword on this question, absolutely. I was not in favor of single-family homes being sprinkled in the town with space requirements. I thought that looking at space requirements could definitely be a better alternative. I agree that houses 5 feet apart from each other should probably have a sprinkler system in them, because the fire department will not show up in time to keep another house from catching on fire. I don't disagree that sprinklers save lives. I don't at all. But a lot of people in town have felt like it's infringed on their rights. It's forcing an issue on them. I don't have sprinklers in my house. I think I counted 10 smoke detectors before I came to the meeting tonight in my house that I had to put in by code. I feel like I'm more than covered if there's smoke in my house, that I will know that there is a fire in my house. Again, subdivisions, close proximity to each other, close houses, multifamily, I believe they should have to be sprinkled, but single family I wasn't in favor of.
Thank you. And finally, Fred, your thoughts on this?
No. I come to answer this question as, obviously, like Jenny said, as an outsider. I wasn't involved in the whole process, and everybody on both sides had great arguments, because that's their side. Everybody has great arguments, and this is the job of the town council to make a decision. Somebody has to make a decision, and it's not one person; it's 7 people. So, the reason I don't think that I would have been in favor of it is obviously the cost. It adds to the cost of the home, the maintenance of the home on a yearly basis, and then also, insurances can be more expensive. because of have the systems in place. It makes affordable housing less affordable in a lot of places. And then the personal space thing, I got to agree with Ginny that, you know, everybody's responsible for themselves. You have to take some personal responsibility, but with that comes personal freedoms. And if you should have a choice, and that was always been a hot word in my household with my kids growing up. You know, your choices. You have a choice to make, and you got to live by the choice you make. So you should be able to choose whether you feel for you and your family it's right to have a sprinkler system in your home, and if you feel that you want to do it, go ahead and do it. And if you feel that you don't want to do it and it's not right for you, that for whatever reason, then that's the way it goes. So that would have been my feeling.
Thank you. You know, all of you have made mention of the importance of business, especially small business, as a means to make the town really flourish and the need to attract business. So what, in your view, are some of the barriers to bringing more businesses to the town, and how should Gorham address the barriers that you cite? Lee, we're going to start with you this time.
Well, as I said before, being more business friendly. I've been a business in Gorham for 27 years now, and I'm proud to say that. Family run, family owned in the Gorham Industrial Park. It's not always the friendliest town to be in, to be a business. There's not a lot of communication with the businesses from economic or whatever else. We had signs put up this year in the industrial park that say, "Come grow with us." There's one buildable lot in the entire industrial park left, so it's hard to grow in an industrial park when there's no space. I think communication just with the businesses in town. What spurs business is other businesses talking to each other. It's not going out and selling for the town. It's not having a salesperson. It's other businesses being business friendly, saying, "I'm in Gorham. We have a great experience with them. They're great to work with. They help us with this. They help us with that. Our infrastructure is great." And I think some has been done to help that over the years, but I don't think enough has been done to do that over the years. And also, I think just getting the community back in the town where people know who the businesses are and know what they do. Don't just look at it as tax revenue, basically. And I think a lot of times businesses in this town are just looked at as tax revenue. And I mean, it's not exactly fair. They give a lot back to the community as well. So I think just being more business friendly. I think trying to streamline the planning process so that maybe if you're building in an industrial park with no street frontage, street trees might not be our key concern in there. It might be, how are we going to work with you to get you in here? I'm on the planning board. I know what the process is to build in this town, and I think we could streamline the process a lot to make it more business friendly in this town.
Thank you. Fred, your views on challenges?
The barriers to business. Well, traffic, and if a business wants to come into town here, they need, whether it be retail or manufacturing or industrial, what have you, they need to get people in and out of their space. And that needs to be done efficiently for them. Also, we don't have enough buildings to bring anybody into. There's been some businesses that have come to town and looked for a building, and hey, they want to come to Gorham, but I can't find a space for me. So we need to be able to allow some more, like Lee said, streamline the process to be able to allow some more buildings to be built to attract people here. I mean, that businesses are not necessarily going to come here and buy land, build their own building and do that. They're looking for a space to lease that works for them. And we need more space for them. And that comes into the whole, the planning department with the zoning and what have you. And we're going to get into that in another question. But the biggest barrier is getting people what they need. And we need to communicate more with them, find out what they need, and help them achieve that. You know, it's not just like, oh, here we are, this is what we have, and take it or leave it. It's like, what are you looking for? What do you need? Let's see what we can do to make this what they need, make this town what they need so they can be here, which is what we want in the first place.
Thank you. And finally, Jenny.
When I came to Gorham, I brought with me my small business, Working Words and Graphics, and I have to say, I didn't have any trouble setting up my business. It grew, and it was fun to be here. But when I spoke with folks who joined the Business Exchange, I learned that not everybody had that same experience. There have been people who have bought older buildings and have found that it's so expensive for them to meet the code requirements in order to do what they would like to do in the buildings, that they end up either selling it before they finished it or leaving it empty. And I think that's a shame. I do agree that we need a bigger industrial park. Now, I know you can't take land out of the air, but I'm pretty sure that there'd be a way, after studying the comprehensive plan, we're going to talk about that too, I think. We need more industrial space for our businesses to grow in. For downtown, for those small businesses, I think you would like to know a little bit about that. We have to make the village walkable. I don't know if anybody has been out for a walk, but it's not easy. The sidewalks are a mess. And then if you dare to cross the street, you might not make it. So let's say you want to go shopping downtown, you got to get in your car and drive because it's not safe to walk. The parking is impossible, and it limits what kinds of businesses want to be in town.
Okay. Quick follow-up to this, focusing specifically on micro business or small business, talking about businesses with 2 to 10 employees. Seems to be a lot of turnover, particularly in that sector in the town of Gorham. So again, are there ways in which the town can better support these, especially small businesses? Fred, let's start with you.
The turnover on a small business, obviously, if they're not able to be profitable, then they're done, and that causes the turnover. So especially in the first few years, getting established is the toughest part. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is red tape, and that can mean a lot of things. The hoops that a new business has to jump through, and not the hoops themselves, but even know where to go and how to do it and when they come. It should be a consistent, which is a key word for all businesses, a consistent plan, and a plan that says, okay, if you're starting to open a business here in Gorham, this is what you need to do. This is the process we have to go through. Doing it one time is understandable, but having to go back and redo things 2 and 3 times because this person wants it this way and this person wants it that way, it just makes it tough, and it costs time, and time is money. And especially in the first 6 months, year and a half, 2 years of starting a new business, to get your feet on the ground running, you have to be able to start quickly. And if you can make that an easier process to get them going, then it would be a good way to support them.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Ginny.
My business was in that category. And what I found is that I had to find the other business owners who were the same size so that we could work together. And that was actually how the Business Exchange began. There are ways for small businesses to promote their business, but I think that we need to make sure that they're promoting their business among each other, so that if you sell office supplies, you want to make sure that all of the businesses in Gorham are buying your products. The marketplace that we set up more than 20 years ago now, it's an annual event, and while some people think it's just a day to go and have a good time and get free samples, what I see happening is business to business. And, I just think we have to be supportive. Businesses have to go out and reach out for themselves. But I think, what Fred said about making it possible for them to get that information is very important. It's hard. It's hard to start a business. And if it doesn't flourish, it has to turn over. There's not usually a lot of money behind it. I know that there were some grants that the Gorham Economic Development used to make available, and I'm going to admit my stupidity here. I don't know whether they're still doing it. But I'm not sure that everybody knows about those opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Lee.
I mean, nationally, we're talking about a business sector that has a very low survival rate, so I don't think this is just a town issue at this point. I understand that we see it in the town. My family business, we started with one person, my father, basically. We're now 44 people, 3 shifts, 5 days a week at this point. It's doable in this town. It's not an impossible thing to do. But I don't disagree that we could do more to make it easier on the businesses. I think we need to look at possible tax incentives, because I would rather see some tax revenue than no tax revenue come from these businesses at this point. I mean, look at the center of town. It's founded on mom and pop shops, basically. I mean, it's our thriving downtown that we want to have. We want to have things walking distance. We want to make it so that people can live in apartments and walk to everywhere they're going instead of taxing our infrastructure at this point. And I think if we can do more to get that 2 to 10 person business model in the center of town, I think it's only going to help our town over time. So I think some tax incentives might be needed for that. I'm not saying give everything away for free, but I'm saying just help at this point, 2 to 3 years to get them started. I mean, that's really the hardest years, is the first 2 to 3 years of a startup. So thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Shift gears now to another topic that has certainly been a hot button issue in the town for some time. What are the town's best options for addressing the growth in Gorham schools? Jenny, we'll lead off with you this time.
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that one. Again, the knee is connected to the ankle. And the growth that's going on, the new building, the new developments that are being built certainly affect our schools. So we need to be better planners. You just can't pop up 100 houses and not think about what school is going to serve the kids that will live in those houses. So planning is the key. I met with the superintendent of schools last week, and we were talking about the population. And right now, our elementary schools are packed. The high school isn't as packed, but those elementary school kids are going to be going up to high school in another 8 years, and then the high school will be too crowded. And with the growth that's going on, I believe it's not going to end. So the best option, I think, is to be planning ahead so that it doesn't get away from us, so that we're not having to have portable classrooms and hire. I mean, everything is tough. I'm a teacher, and it is tough to teach when you're crowded into a room. It's even harder if you're teaching little kids. So planning, that's a big P word for me.
Okay. Lee.
We're a victim of our own success. That's no doubt in this town. Our school system's one of the best in the state, and people want to move here because of it. You can't knock that from anybody, I guess. Growing up in the Gorham school system, I went to schools in portables, and the school was overcrowding when I was there. Narragansett was a K through 3 school. You went to Village, which was like a melting pot of kids hitting one place, basically. You had White Rock, Little Falls, and then I'll call it the center of town kids. We all met, and you met a whole new group of people, basically. Then you went to Shaw Junior High, which is where we're sitting now because we overgrew that. I believe that 55-plus housing is a good option to try and stabilize the growth a little bit in this town. It doesn't tax our infrastructure the way that the schools, like the single-family houses, residential neighborhoods do. I honestly feel like 55-plus housing is a good option. And then looking at businesses with apartments above them, multi-family housing type stuff, or even single-family apartments, because we're not catering to a USM crowd in this town. We are a college town, as much as some people don't want to admit. We are a college town If we can cater single-family apartments to USM kids, they're out of room. They don't have any more dorm rooms. Some of them are staying 3 to a dorm room right now. If we can try and get some apartments in this town, you're going to take some of that burden off, and it's not going to bring children into our school system if you're bringing those people in. They're already coming. They're already going to school here. And then the 55-plus communities, again, I mean, you're not impacting our school systems. If we can incentivize them a little bit, you're still taking nothing off of our school system, and the growth's going to keep coming. It's just going to be an ebb and flow of housing getting swapped out, basically, at that point. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Fred, your thoughts on addressing the growth in Gorham schools?
The best options, well, maybe they haven't come up yet, but you know, as far as the high school goes, there's thoughts of expanding it. The elementary schools, which one needs to be expanded? Where do they go? You know, the different options for the high school, back and forth with the middle school, up, over by the park, what all these different things. But it doesn't, you know, all those are all really one option. And planning is the key. I mean, this isn't the first time Gorham or any other town has had this problem, nor will it be the last. And it's an ongoing thing. It's not a problem, I don't think. It's a change, and change happens all the time. And but I do know this: we have to live within our means, whether it's a household or a business or a town. You have to live within your means, and you have to plan for that. I'm looking forward to understanding how the Economic Development Committee is run and working, the school board committee is working, and meeting those folks and seeing what is going on in there. A good idea can come from anybody. I mean, there's 17,000 people that live in this town. It's not just, you know, a handful of people that come in and out of this building. You know, a good idea and a solution can come from anywhere, and you need the people in this building to be able to recognize that idea and take it forward once it arrives. And I think just the communication between people that are on the boards and committees in this town and the people in the town, the communication between them is key, and I think that's the best option no matter what problem we face.
Thank you. So let's take just sort of a quick break from talking about town-specific issues and talk again a little bit more about who each of you are as individuals. What would you say is one of your most notable achievements in life, and what does that say about you both as a leader in general and as a potential council person? Lee, we'll start with you on this one.
Oh, this is a fun question. I mean, I could talk about a lot of things. Family-run, family-owned business in Gorham. I'm very proud of that. 27 years in business, employing local people. I think I have probably 12 Gorham employees in my building. I'm a member of the planning board 4 years. I've never missed a meeting for any reason or missed an ordinance meeting for that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, my family is my greatest achievement. I mean, I can't deny that. I have a saint of a wife who lets me do crazy things like run for town council and go on the planning board. And I have 2 great kids who are going through the school system. And really, to say that that's not my finest achievement, I mean, would be a lie. So that is my crowning achievement.
And again, just the second part of that question. So how does that translate?
So me as a council person, I mean, I guess commitment. You always make it work. I mean, like I said, I'm on the planning board now. My wife and I make it work. If I'm on the council, I think it's a commitment thing. I put the time in. I focus on what I'm trying to do. I try to make the most informed decisions that I can make that I feel like are going to impact people in the best way. You're in essence a parent to the town if you're on the town council. And are you always going to make your kids happy? No, but you try to do the right thing at the end of the day. And I think that's why I could be a fair town councilor.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Lee. Fred?
My crowning achievement, other than my wife wanting to stay married to me for 23 years, which I think is quite a feat. I'd like to think it hasn't happened yet. And this could be the start of it. But one thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this question was our farm, my family's farm. My father and I decided to quit farming back in 2000, and that was a very hard decision. But the reason it came about was in order to stay competitive and to keep going, we would have had to cheapen our standards that we like to maintain. And we didn't want to do that. And to keep going the way we wanted to go was to probably risk our future. So it was either, change your standards or risk your future. Well, those are two great options. And so we decided neither. We just hung it up. And my father decided that he was at a point where he could retire. And he looks at me when we decided that, and he goes, "What are you going to do?" And I thought, "I have no idea." But I figured it out. And that's the whole point. When you're faced with a situation, you don't know, you might not know what the answer is right there, but you figure it out. You go forward, you talk to people, you get involved with things, and the solution presents itself. And that's how I think that everything should go. And I mean, you have a problem facing in front of you, just because you don't know the answer right then and there and know exactly what to do every time does not mean that you're not qualified to do that. You have to be able to talk to people and listen and find out the different options to fix this problem that you're in. What does that say about me, and how does that help me become a good town councilor? Objectively look at and make hard decisions, even though it might not be the one you want.
Okay. Thank you. And Ginny, finally.
Well, I think probably for me, other than being a mother, I agree with you. That's got to be the hardest job and the best achievement. But for me, moving to Gorham, moving to Maine from Massachusetts, where I was very well established and I knew everybody. Then I moved up here and I didn't know anybody but my husband. And I started a business all by myself in a bedroom. It was a small writing business, and ended up with 8 full-time employees. And that, I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. So what did that do to prepare me to be on the town council? Well, if you're a business owner, you're working with your workers, you're working with customers, with vendors, with your competition. And so I really think that I learned how to listen, and I don't think that human beings do enough listening. But if you listen, and I agree with what Fred just said about how important it is to listen. But the kinds of skills that I developed, I think, with my workers especially, I learned about how to be fair and how to be supportive. With my customers, I learned all about negotiating and how important it is to be persistent when you know that you're right. I also learned that you can't be complacent. And I believe that all of those skills are transferable into being a good town councilor. So that's what I bring. That's what I offer.
Thank you. So before I ask the next question, just to give the public and our viewers a little background. So in 2016, the Gorham Town Council voted to make a 3-year commitment to the Husky Line service at an annual cost of the town of about $35,000. A decision whether or not to authorize additional funds in order to continue participation with that program will be made after that trial period. So first off, what are your thoughts on the Husky Line as far as its utility and success since its implementation in Gorham this fall? Fred, we'll start with you this time.
Well, to kind of go on what Ginny said a minute ago about USM is, if it wasn't for USM, we probably wouldn't have this line. And it's a great thing that we have. I've been in town quite a bit during the day, and you see the bus go back and forth, and there's a lot of, during the day, there's a lot of folks on it, and they're mostly college students. And I see it stop there on Main Street, and Not that there isn't, but I haven't seen anybody get in and off, on and off of it. I hope that it's being a benefit to some people, and that's the way to judge in the future. I mean, it's only been going a couple of months, so it's hard to say. But looking forward, is you have to look to see if, what the benefit of it is. If it is benefiting people in the town, then it's a good idea. If it's not, then it's not a good idea. And yeah, I believe it's simple as that.
Thank you. Ginny, your thoughts on the Husky line?
I'm going to be ashamed that I haven't gone on it yet, and I really need to, because it was something that I thought was a great idea, and I'm glad that we have that. I think especially for senior citizens, I think it could be wonderful if you can get all the way from USM or here from Main Street all the way to the mall or to the old port. I just think that's wonderful, and we should be able to do that. And I do intend, by the way, to take the bus next week, and I'm going to try to get myself to the mall and back and see how it is. Friends of mine have ridden on it, so it's not just students, and they liked it. It's all about communication. We have to get people to go on it and then talk about what a wonderful experience it was. It's going to save money. It's going to save pollution. It's just a smart thing to do. And we're all so glued to our cars, and we don't realize that public transportation is there for us. We're lucky to have it, and we need to use it. So I hope people will use it. And it's true, if it doesn't get used, we're going to lose it. So maybe we need to have a bus party where we all get on the bus and try it out. I don't know. There's got to be a way to get people to do it, and I think it's communication.
Thank you. And finally, Lee, your thoughts on the Husky line initially?
I think the Husky line's a great idea in theory. It's only been in operation for 2-3 months at this point, so it's hard to base it on that. But I did just find out this week that the first park and ride you can go to is in Westbrook. That seems like a huge disadvantage to us at this point, that people from Gorham can't park in Gorham, get on the bus, and go where they want to go to Portland or whatever else. I think we should look at a park and ride for this Husky line if we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. But again, I think it's a great service to the town. I think it's great for the USM kids going from Gorham to Portland. And I think it's good for people that want to go from town to in-town Portland if they want to. I think it's a great service, and it also reduces the trips on our roads if people are using this for what it's intended to be used for. So yes, I think it was money well invested as long as it's being utilized to its full potential.
Okay. So as a follow-up to that, how specifically would you seek to evaluate the success of the bus route once funding is no longer supported by assistance? Ginny, we'll start with you.
It's all about numbers.
Yeah.
I don't need 2 minutes to answer that. It's all about numbers. If you can get people on the buses, then they'll stay. But it's all about the money.
Okay. Lee.
I mean, it's a basic cost breakdown, basically. How many trips did the bus make, and how many people were on the bus when it made those trips? If the bus has one rider and it makes 30 trips a day, it doesn't seem cost prohibitive to me. If it's got 5 to 6 riders and it makes 10 trips a day, maybe we got to do a cost breakdown on it. It's about the numbers. It's about how much toll are we taking off our infrastructure by using this bus system at this point. And if we can justly say, yes, we reduced this many trips a day going down our roads, or it freed up this much traffic in the center of town because the bus is coming in and out, then I think it's a great service, and I think that's a great way to judge if our investment was used wisely.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Fred.
It's first thought is the numbers, obviously, but then it's the cost to benefit. The benefit is very hard to evaluate because whether there's 5 people or 50 people a day, other than the students from the town that are using it, how do you tell those 5 people that it's not worth it? Maybe there's another option in there for funding, whether it be that they could still use it, but it doesn't cost the town. Again, we're a ways away from that, but there's definitely a line in there somewhere where it's either worth it or it's not. for the taxpayers. So that line has to be decided where it is.
Thank you. So believe it or not, we're actually on our last question before closing comments. We're going to start off with Lee for this. When we're talking about the town's comprehensive plan, what are two things you would change about the plan, or do you feel that it's working as it is, or that it will work as it is?
Okay, so like I said, current member of the planning board, so I've been in the direct line of fire on the comp plan for 4 years now. The comp plan is well-written. It's a well-written document that was voted on by the taxpayers of this town and the voters of this town. I fully believe the comp plan has the best of intentions that it can possibly have, and I think what we need to do is make our zoning and our ordinances match our comp plan, because right now, if you look at certain zones, they don't match our comp plan. Well, how as an informed planning board do you make a decision when your zoning says to do one thing and your comp plan says to do the other? What we found out by a lawyer a couple of weeks ago is you follow the zoning, but you use the comp plan as a guideline. Well, that doesn't exactly give you a real warm fuzzy when you've got half the town showing up saying it shouldn't go in and half the town saying it should, and a developer really angry in front of you, basically. Just making the two match is a gigantic deal in this town. The other side of that is, I think personally we should vote on the comp plan every 5 years, whether it needs revision or not. Just have it on the vote, and if people say no, it doesn't need to be revised. If people say yes, we get a committee together and we try to figure out what needs to be revised on it. I don't think it would hurt to get town input on where we want to be in the future, but I think dragging it out 15 to 20 years, I don't think is the smartest choice for this town at the end of the day. I think we need to have a more timely basis on that. And really that's giving some direction to the town, saying you have a choice in where we're going. Where do you want to be? Listening to people again. I mean, it's all a communication thing. If you're saying in 5 years, do we want to update this comp plan? And everybody says yes, there's obviously pressing issues that need to be addressed at this point. So yes, I think the comp plan is working, but I think we need to bring our zoning to match the comp plan, and I think we need to let the town have some say on how often we update it.
Thank you, Lee. Fred, your thoughts on changes to make to the comprehensive plan, or why it functions well as is?
Well, it's a good plan. A lot of people put in a lot of effort to get it there. I have to say I'm probably the least experienced looking at that plan from these two folks, but having gone through it several times in the last few weeks, at first glance, or not first glance, but anyway, looking at it as much as I have, it's where we need to be. It's where we want to go, but the implementation of it does not seem to have gone the way it should have gone. I mean, if you have steps 1 through 10, I don't think you should start on 4. In order for a plan to work, it's all in the execution of it. And like Lee said, I have zoning concerns on that. I mean, it's not in line. That's a big problem. It needs to get in line before anything else can move forward. Having the plan is a good idea. Having it as a guide is a good idea. You have to plan for the future, but you can't set it in stone because things change. Change is not bad. And but just because something was a good idea last year doesn't mean it was a good idea this year. Hence change. So you have to keep looking at it. You have to keep going forward. It always has to be revisited and revised, and you just have to go with it. But implementing it the way it was designed is key.
Thank you. And finally, Ginny, your thoughts on the comprehensive plan?
Well, I was on the committee that spent some time studying this to bring it up to date. And it had been about 20 years since that had passed between the last full review of it and the review that we did. I 100% agree with you. It shouldn't be done in 20 years. It needs to be done at least in 5 years. I don't know any of you, if you've read it or even looked at it, it's a daunting document. Things about this thick. It's full of statistics and maps and predictions and history and future, and it's all over the place. It's a difficult document to read. So to ask our citizens to vote on it, I mean, it took me forever to get through it and to understand it, and I asked a lot of questions when we were going through it. It's all about, I believe the plan was put together to create balance of land use. It talks about, it's all about having green space and residential property and industrial zones, and to make sure that we take care of our environment, agricultural areas. And they're actually spelled out there. And Lee is right that, it's a suggestion almost. And you get people in who are arguing that, they ought to be able to do it because somebody else wanted to do it. And my final thought about this is maybe being clearer about each of those divisions. So if we talk about residential, the land that's set aside for residential growth, instead of just putting in 100 or 150 single-family dwellings that are going to bring our taxes up, let's do something different. The last study that was done on this, I believe, was 1990, and in Gorham, 91% of our houses being built are for single families, single-family homes. 1% for apartments, and not even 1%, the rest was condos. So that's a 91 against 9%. So we're building houses that cost us money. We need to do something more about making more land for the industry, and then that would bring in money. But why not change that ratio to 85 and 15? And you have 85 houses, and you have 15 condos, apartments, and you put a limit on housing building until that ratio is reached. I think that would help our tax base. I really do. I'd love to talk more about that, but we only have 2 minutes, and yep, there goes the paddle. I have to shut up now.
Thank you so much, Ginny. So this is the opportunity now where our candidates can make their final comments. Lee, we'll start with you.
All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is actually a bigger crowd than I was picturing tonight. It's great. And then everybody at home that's watching, thank you. I want to thank everybody for the outpouring of support I've gotten over the last month or so here, and all the funny jokes I've gotten about why would I run for town council. But most of all, I mean, I think we're all up here because we love this town and we want to help this town. You're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem, and I'd like to try and be part of the solution at the end of the day. So, I mean, I'd appreciate your vote in November, but again, I think we're all up here for the same reason as we love the town, and we just want to help it as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Fred.
Well, I'd like to thank people that have called and showed support for me. People that I would never have thought that would be glad that I'm running for town council are, and that makes me feel good, I guess. And this is a change for me. I've never been one to offer help to people usually, and I figured that if somebody wants my help, they'll come and ask me for it. And but here I'm asking for a vote so I can have the opportunity to try to help the town, and that's a strange place for me. But that's how strongly I feel about, I think this is the time for me to do this, and that I want to, and that I think I have valuable qualifications to do that, and that I can be of help. I do know one thing, though, that when someone has asked for my help, they've never been disappointed that I showed up. So other than that, I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And finally, Ginny.
I want to thank GoCat especially and Georgia for providing this opportunity for us, not only to introduce ourselves to the community, but I think for the three of us to get to know each other a little bit. That part's been really fun. I think what we have experienced here tonight is a combination of good news and bad news. And for me, the good news is any one of us, I mean, I think we're all great. We should all be right away in. But the bad news is only 2 of us can be selected for this. So I'm going to ask for you to check off my name, which is Virginia. Now, you're not going to find Ginny on the ballot. It's going to say Virginia. And just check that off and give me your vote, and I will do my best to serve you with everything I have. Thank you.
Jenny, thank you. And on behalf of everyone at Gorham Community Access, again, we thank you all for your participation here this evening. We encourage all voters to pursue more information about our candidates through other sources or by contacting them individually. We'll be broadcasting all of your home addresses. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that.
Come on for tea.
But again, contact the candidates at your ability for more information. As far as voting locations, there are several located within the town of Gorham, Ward 1.1, Ward 1.2, and Ward 2, and those locations are on your screen at this time. Business hours for the town clerk's office, again, those should be popping up on your screen shortly, and you can register to vote in person at the town clerk's office, which is located here at the Municipal Center, 75 South Street. There you go. Those are the town clerk's hours right there. Now, if you're not able to vote on Election Day, you may call or visit the clerk's office to get an absentee ballot until Thursday, November 1. The office will be open until 7 o'clock that evening. Early voting can also be completed at the Municipal Center from October 29th to November 1st, so that's important to note. And you may also register to vote on Election Day at your polling place. Now, for more information or to contact the town clerk at any time, that information is on your screen. And as for the program tonight, Meet the Candidates for Gorham Town Council will be available for streaming at the town's website and other social media channels as well. Those are on your screen at this time. On behalf of everyone on staff at Gorham Community Access and Gorham Government Education Television, I'm Beth Jones, Sanborn, reminding everyone to please vote on November 6th. Thank you and good night.